Eli had never considered himself a hero. Before the war, he painted storefront signs and designed window displays in New York City. But when the call came, he joined the army, and his life changed overnight. His superiors soon discovered that his talents went beyond brushstrokes. He could paint, design, and imagine things that fooled even the most careful eyes. In early 1944, the Dost Army was officially formed, made up of about 1,100 men who were artists, sound engineers, set designers, actors, and radio experts. Their mission was bold: to mislead the German forces about the strength and location of Allied troops. They would not fight in the classic sense. Instead, they would create illusions. Eli and his comrades trained hard. They learned to inflate rubber tanks, trucks, jeeps, artillery, and even airplanes. They practiced setting up a fake army in minutes, using air compressors to fill the decoys. They also worked with giant speakers mounted on half-tracks, playing pre-recorded sound effects of marching troops, engines, and gunfire. In addition, radio specialists sent fake messages, copying real code patterns to make the deception convincing. When the Ghost Army finally headed to continental Europe, Eli felt a mix of fear and excitement. He knew that the fate of many depended on their success. During one of their first missions in France, they were ordered to support the operations around Normandy. Their role was to convince the Germans that massive Allied divisions were gathering in places where there were almost no real soldiers. Eli and another team arrived at a quiet field just after nightfall. They unloaded huge canvas bags that held their inflatable vehicles. Under the cover of darkness, they set up their decoys, Shermans, half-tracks, and trucks. They camouflaged them, painted them with fake division insignias, and positioned them carefully on hills and ridges. Once the visual illusion was in place, it was time for the sound deception. Eli watched as men started the half-track mounted speakers, playing recordings of marching soldiers, motor engines, and artillery fire that echoed across the fields. The sound was loud, sometimes so loud that soldiers later said they could hear it from miles away. But creating illusions was not easy. Night after night, Eli and his comrades worked for hours. They had only a few hours of sleep. Every time they inflated the tanks, there was a risk. A puncture, a bad seam, or a mechanical failure could ruin the entire setup. And the stakes were high. If the Germans saw through the trick, the real Allied units might suffer heavy losses. On one particularly tense night, a scouting plane flew overhead, its silhouette faint in the moonlight. Eli held his breath. Would that pilot see through their disguise? Would they notice the rubber structures beneath the canvas? He prayed the shadows and the camouflage netting would do their work. Even more dangerous was the enemy's response. At dawn, German reconnaissance observed what they believed were real armored divisions forming. Their commanders transmitted orders. Radio operators sent messages. Eli knew that if the Germans committed forces to respond here, they would be drawing troops away from places where the real Allied attacks were planned. But if the Germans suddenly realized the deception, they might react violently. Over the following weeks, the Ghost Army carried out more than 20 deception operations across France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. Eli moved from camp to camp, inflating tanks, repositioning sound trucks, and coordinating radio traffic. In one mission near the Rhine River in March 1945, the unit staged what would become its most ambitious deception. They pretended that two full infantry divisions were preparing to cross the river. That mission, later known as Operation Viersen, was critical. The real U.S. Ninth Army was planning to cross the Rhine at a different point, and the Ghost Army's illusion was meant to pull German forces away from that crossing. For days, Eli and his team inflated hundreds of dummy vehicles, broadcast fake radio messages, and played sound effects of marching troops building pontoon bridges. When the real troops made their crossing on the night of March 23, 24, German resistance was surprisingly light. Because of the deception, many German units were positioned elsewhere, anticipating an attack that never came. The mission was a success. Back in the makeshift camps, Eli allowed himself a brief moment of wonder. He thought about how their fake tanks, made of rubber and canvas, had helped protect real soldiers' lives. He reflected on how creativity, rather than brute strength, had become a powerful weapon. After the war ended, Eli returned home to New York. He packed away his brushes, his design sketches, and the memories of long nights spent inflating decoys under the stars. The Ghost Army's work remained secret for decades. Even his closest family did not fully understand what he had done. Many years later, when the story of the Ghost Army was finally declassified, Eli felt a deep satisfaction. Historians recognize that the unit had saved countless lives by misleading the enemy again and again. Veterans of the Ghost Army later received one of the nation's highest honors, a Congressional Gold Medal, in recognition of their creative service. Eli never saw himself as a conventional soldier. He did not lead charges or fire guns. But through his artistry and imagination, he played a unique role in ending a war. He often told friends that war does not always demand violence. Sometimes it calls for illusion and daring. On a quiet evening, in his small studio, Eli would sit and look at a blank canvas, remembering how he once summoned an entire army out of thin air. He believed now more than ever that creativity could change the course of history, and in his own quiet way, he had proved it.